Hello everyone and welcome back to Queco, the Queer Ecology podcast. I'm Anya, your host, and I'm here with our guests Ms. Madhurima Bhattacharjee and Mr. Oza Bandish Arman, who have recently traveled to Chikmagalur to create a documentary about exploitation in the coffee industry. Before we begin, can I ask both of you to introduce yourselves for the audience?
Hello everyone, this is Madhurima. I am a final year student of English Honours at Christ University, and that's about it.
Hello everyone, I am Bandish, a final year English Honours student at Christ University. As a final year undergrad student, I rely and sustain on coffee itself.
What a pleasure to have both of you on here. So, starting with the questions, what led you both to look into this particular topic in the first place and to go all the way to Chikmagalur too?
So to answer the first question, I would say that coffee has become an imperative in all our lives to go through the social interactions and daily midday slums that we all have in our everyday life. So it's a very basic product. So we did not go into anything exotic. We went to coffee, which is very essential to our lives. And the second part of the question, why Chikmagalur? Honestly, it was a college trip, and we planned it when we got a weekend off, and that's about it. And why Chikmagalur specifically? Also because it was the first place where coffee plantations in India began. So yeah, that's about it.
That's great. The issue of labor exploitation tends to get majorly overlooked because of how invisible it can be, especially in the agrarian sector, because of how removed people in the city are from the realities of food production. In that respect, what perspective did you encounter when going to Chikmagalur and interacting with the producers directly over there?
So while we do talk in classroom spaces about exploitation that happens in case of laborers in multiple agrarian sectors or plantation sectors, one of the crucial perspectives that we developed and got to know about was that it's not just the laborers who are involved in this perpetual cycle of exploitation, but we got a hands-on experience by interacting with the estate owners of the coffee plantations in Chikmagalur, and we understood how even they are very much involved in this vicious circle of exploitation. And while they contribute towards exploiting the laborers that work under them, there's not much that they can actually do to improve their conditions, and even those estate owners are equally oppressed by the middlemen who sell their products to the big estates. So it is an unending circle. It's a continuous circle of exploitation and oppression, and while they are aware of whatever is happening in their surroundings, there is nothing much that an individual can do to come out of it.
Yes, quite a important aspect of production that often gets overlooked and just not part of the cycle as well. The issue of labor exploitation often gets overlooked. And in your documentary, you often mentioned the process of Mcdonaldisation, if I'm saying that correctly.
Yeah.
For any listeners that are unaware, that is a term coined by one George Ritzer to describe the process of a society being run more like a fast food company than, a society. Please do correct me if I'm wrong, but this is when a society prioritizes things like efficiency, control, standardization, predictability, and calculability, which is making things quantifiable over community or the people. Yes?
Correct.
That being said, other than capitalism, what do you think are some causes for this issue? Can you describe how this is affecting normal society and everyday life of the people?
Right, so even some of the reasons that Mcdonaldisation is gaining so much traction, especially over the last few years, is globalization for sure. So the brand McDonald in itself has globalized a lot. We see stores in India more than we see Indian stores in themselves. So globalization plays a big role in how Mcdonaldisation is spreading. Apart from that, consumerism is a very big factor about why there is a need for Mcdonaldisation in itself. So the consumerist behavior, the consumerist tendency to have everything very quickly. So we don't want to wait in lines when we are ordering food or anything for that matter. So there have to be express lanes. The efficiency part comes from there. We also want uniform services wherever we go. So whether it be Bangalore or whether it be Delhi, we want similar services. We want the same kind of products that we are accustomed to, and that is where Mcdonaldisation again comes in, and it is just gaining more and more prominence. As you said, the concept was proposed in 1993 by George Ritzer, but it has taken on many evolved avatars over the years now.
Yeah, that's quite an interesting concept, which I think most of the people are not aware of, and it's quite a difficult word to pronounce as well. Back to the question of coffee. These mega corporations that drive the exploitation of laborers often have their hands in a number of baskets. Pies? Anyways, I mean, look at how absolutely massive Nestle's reach is. These companies tend to crush competition and easily outprice any startup brands of coffee that try and ethically source their materials. Even there's something to be said about how ethical these brands really are, as your documentary points out. In a situation where most people can't really buy ethical or sustainable coffee, what steps do you think people and the government should undertake?
So I'll answer the second part first. What steps can the government take to, ease this process? Now, as you might be aware, most of the laborers that work in such industries are undocumented and unskilled. So first of all, the government can take up documenting these workers so they are officially recognized by the state, and maybe an official identity could help them fetch better wages, if at all. Second thing is minimum wages should be provided to them. That is also the job of the government. If the government cannot afford those wages, there should be provisions for the industry or the estate owners to provide a certain minimum wages to the laborers. One of the biggest difficulties that the laborers face that we encountered during our documentary was that they work in very unsafe environments, and they are not provided with healthcare or any of the assurances that a normal person should be awarded with if working in such unsafe environments. So maybe the government can also work towards giving them some kind of assurances in terms of health, or if something happens to their body, if they are harmed in the line of duty, then maybe they will be compensated for that. That's one thing. Coming to a more personal level, what I as an individual or you as an individual can do about this, well, we cannot stop drinking coffee. Obviously, it sounds like a very good idea, but again, as I mentioned, I sustain on coffee myself for daily operations. What we can do is spread awareness about what goes on beyond in the production of coffee, and only if more and more people are aware, is there a way to actually act on it. So awareness is foremost. Action will follow soon enough.
You did mention speciesism in your documentary, but didn't quite go into detail. Would you care to elaborate about that? Because the coffee industry does lead to some biodiversity loss, as all agrarian sectors do. But it was very interesting to find out that some trees are spared deforestation just because of their utility to the profit machine. Can you elaborate on that?
So to begin with, speciesism is a term that was coined by Richard Ryder, and it basically explains prejudiced activities against one species and preferring one species over another. So a common example of that would be, the discourses that we find in our classrooms regarding slaughtering certain species and making them your food items, and while petting others. And but what do not find too much attention is speciesism based on the level of flora, which is like plants. So when we met the estate owner, Mr. Nitin, in the coffee estates, he told us about how it was allowed to cut oak trees, but it was not allowed to cut mahogany and jackfruit trees. And all these trees were planted to protect the coffee shrubs during the initial stages of their growth. And he mentioned a very, ironical allegory. It was as though the mahogany and jackfruit trees had LIC premium subscription, so they could live while the oak trees could not live. So it is also important to, when you pluck leaves and flowers, it is important to pay attention to this aspect of speciesism, that it exists not just on the level of fauna but also on the level of flora. Yeah, that's
wow. That's like a really interesting part I was not aware of. Alright, we're reaching the end of the podcast. Are there any other issues that you encountered during your trip that you would like to address?
Yeah, so one of the primary issues that we encountered was gender discrimination and the pay scale gaps that are prevalent in these estates. So Mr. Nitin told us how the skilled male laborers got around $600 for one day, and the skilled female laborers got $400. So that is, while they did the same amount of job, that is a clear indication of or a demonstration of gender discrimination, and that goes on to escalate when he told us about how even the unskilled male laborers got paid more than the skilled female laborers.
Wow.
So there is this concept of gender segregation where the pay scales differ because of your years of experience, age of seniority, and that is gender segregation. But gender discrimination is a clear prejudiced activity wherein you discriminate against women, and despite doing the same job as their male counterparts, they cannot earn enough as equal to their male counterparts. So this is an issue that we really need to look into, not just in coffee estates, in every sector of work, like white collar, blue collar jobs, every job, that gender discrimination exists on a very large scale.
And that needs to be addressed in all sectors.
Definitely, like in all discourses of employability and all, it definitely needs to be addressed.
Okay, alright everyone, thank you so much for coming on today. If anyone would like to watch this documentary for themselves, the video will be uploaded to YouTube, the link for which you can find in the episode's description. Coffee is and likely always will be a massive part of daily life for most people, so we don't really question the processes that get it from the plantations to our cups, or for that matter, the impact of that processes. This is only a brief look or maybe an introduction to the subject. Learning more about the politics behind the food you eat can be distressing, but the invisibility that the exploiter gains from this discomfort only encourages them to keep going the way they do. Even worse, visibility is only the first step of the process. Corporations deal with it by slapping an ethically produced sticker onto their products and hoping you won't look further. Question everything, look for every perspective, and get involved with your local government. Big changes start from small places. Thank you all so much for listening, and we hope to see you next time. This is Anya signing off.